The Western New York congressional delegation is calling for an investigation into Colgan Airlines. This is in connection with the crash of Flight 3407. The flight crashed into a home in the Buffalo area back in February of 2009, killing 50 people. And now newly released emails show that the pilot's supervisors had concerns about his abilities in that crash. Those emails were not given to the NTSB during the initial investigation. My next guest is asking U.S. Attorney Eric Holder to look into whether Colgan Air committed a crime by withholding these emails. She is Congresswoman Kathy Hochul, and she's joining me tonight from Buffalo. Congresswoman, thanks very much for being here.
My pleasure.
So this is really pretty earth-shattering, actually, and only came to light because of a lawsuit that was filed by an attorney on behalf of some of the families. So just briefly, could you tell me what those emails show?
Exactly. When the NTSB was conducting its original investigation into this crash, none of this information surfaced. In fact, they gave indication that they thought the pilot who was flying that evening was qualified.
Right.
So it was a lawsuit that was filed here in federal court, and the emails just surfaced the last couple weeks that show inconsistent information that was never provided to the NTSB that calls into question his ability to fly this particular aircraft, that he did not have sufficient training. So I want to know who knew what, when, and why this was not revealed earlier, and that is the sentiment of all of us in this delegation, Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Congressman Slaughter, Congressman Higgins, and Congressman Reed. We're all united in this because we are concerned about the overall integrity of the investigation when you find out that these were not revealed. You wonder what else wasn't revealed. Right. So I want the Attorney General, all of us want the Attorney General to look into whether there was an intentional withholding of relevant information in the furtherance of a federal investigation. They can determine the criminality of that. I just want a deeper level of inquiry than we've had thus far, because this is very disturbing, not just to us, but particularly to the families who've endured so much over these past few years. This is just a real slap in the face to those families.
So in short, actually, the determination was that this crash was caused by pilot error, but it's not just merely that these emails were withheld, but that they actually run counter to testimony that was given when the initial investigation was going on. This guy's name is Marvin Renslow, that was the captain, and he actually, according to these emails, was not qualified to get the training to fly the plane that he then subsequently crashed. I mean, that is just, you got to be floored by that. This is a guy who's completely unqualified, and it looks like they covered it up. Is that what you think happens here?
Well, that's my sense, and that's just based on the information that's reported very accurately in the Buffalo News, I believe. They've been doing a phenomenal job in exposing this, and we've been following that as well. But that's why I don't want to just base it on what we're finding out now. I want a real investigation conducted by the Attorney General's office. The NTSB held an investigation. I want to believe in the results, except now when you find out that they were not given the full picture, it causes me to suspect the whole investigation and whether or not everything was given as it should have been. So this is really problematic. It's really a problem for Colgan Air. Congressman Higgins and I had them in our offices a few weeks ago before the emails were revealed, and they went through step by step trying to explain to us what happened that night and how it could never happen again. And their training was adequate, and a lot of other matters that we had asked about. At the time, we did not know they had withheld relevant information from the investigating arm regarding the qualifications of this particular pilot. So to find out after we had them in our office trying to get a clear picture after the federal investigation, and now to find out a conflicting picture, that's why we've asked the Attorney General to investigate.
That must make you furious. They were sitting right in front of you and having a conversation about how this was never going to happen again, and then come to find out that actually they knew darn well that perhaps this pilot shouldn't have been flying the aircraft that he was.
Absolutely, and on behalf of all the flying public, and I'm on an airplane multiple times a week to go back and forth in Washington, this makes everyone concerned.
Sure.
What else has been withheld? I mean, I want the complete picture, and that's why we've sent this letter this weekend to the Attorney General.
Okay, so Colgan was supposed to get back to you today. They had heard your concerns, and they were going to get back to you. Have they?
Not yet, no.
No. I mean, I'm not quite clear what it is that they might say. Have you had conversations with them at all since these emails came out?
In my judgment, the only questions they should be answering right now are going to come from the Attorney General. Clearly, they didn't feel that they needed to tell us about these emails. They did not. They were revealed during a federal lawsuit that was filed here in Buffalo. That's how we found out about it. So I think they should plan on answering questions by a federal prosecutor or at least another level of investigation coming out of Washington.
And what has the Attorney General said in response to your letter? I know we're not giving him terribly much time, but, you know, it's Washington. Things can move along.
No, we expect an answer shortly, but I just checked with my office and it has not come in. I'm in Buffalo right now, but that has not come in. They just received it. We did notify them it was coming as we were getting all of our members to team up in a joint effort. And I think we speak from strength in numbers to have the senior senator, the junior senator, and our Western New York delegation all behind this. I think that speaks volumes to our commitment to making sure that we find the truth, get to the bottom of this, because clearly we have not gotten to the bottom of it thus far. And also the frustrating thing for these families is that we're supposed to see implementation of a law that was passed that was supposed to improve take care of the fatigue issue and the training issues. We were expecting that on August 1st. They asked for up until November 22nd, a little more time to implement the rules. We are all watching very closely to make sure that they are implemented and in place on November 22nd, or there'll be some questions to be answered as well.
Yeah, you and I have actually spoken about that in the past, so November 22nd is the date that we should keep watching. You know, it sort of, there's a whole bigger picture question here, which is to say, you know, funding. The question about how much more money needs to be put into the system. Now, this is actually Colgan Air. I don't want to confuse the situation. Colgan is a private carrier. Obviously, they have responsibility for their own training, but there needs to be regulation at the federal level, and then cash put in, and we almost saw the government shut down over money for the system. So this, I think, it's got to make people increasingly concerned.
There are people who say they want no federal regulations. There are people who speak on the floor of Congress every single day when we're in session saying no more regulations. There are some regulations that may be superfluous, that we don't need all of them, but I'll tell you right now, when it comes to stepping onto a plane, you want to make sure that the federal regulators have done their job, that they've got the laws in place that they can implement. For example, you would think it's in a no-brainer category that we would expect our pilots to have sufficient hours of sleep before they fly an aircraft, whether they're carrying cargo, which can crash just as easily into a house as a passenger plane.
Yep.
So to have those, now to think that we actually have to go to pass a law to require that. Now, if the industry had regulated themselves and had these common sense measures in place, we could possibly have a different outcome. So in the absence of that, if the industry will not self-police to that level, then you have to have the federal government step in, and that's exactly what has to happen here.